Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth webinar of the webinar series, High Performing Schools with Effective School Libraries. This webinar is on IFLA, Media and Information Literacy and Best Practices of Teacher Librarians in Singapore. And we will start the webinar after 2 minutes. Okay, hello, welcome. I'm your host and one of the speakers of the webinar, Helen Chan. Thank you very much for taking the time to join this webinar. Today's webinar topic is on the IFLA, Media and Information Literacy and Best Practices of Teacher Librarians in Singapore. It is the last webinar of the webinar series, High Performing Schools with Effective School Libraries. The series is organized by IFLA, the Division F. Today's webinar will be divided into 3 parts. The first part will be presented by me over IFLA, Media and Information Recommendations, followed by Ms. Ladia Rennie's presentation on best practices of teacher librarians in Singapore. We will have a Q&A sessions before the end of the webinar. It is delightful to tell you that our webinar series includes the school principals, teacher librarians, school librarians, teachers, and library and information science students from over 26 countries and economies. There are over 165 registrants signed up for the event. Welcome colleagues and friends who join us from different parts of the world today. Let me introduce myself first. I am Helen Chan, the IFLA Professional Division Committee Chair of Division F. Another speaker today is Ladia Rennie. Ladia is a librarian outreach who has been with the National Library Board NLB Singapore for more than 7 years. She has conducted numerous tours and talks for children, students, and adults. As a former educator and now the librarian, Ladia believes that media and information literacy is an important skill for all ages, be it researching projects for schools or discerning information on social media. Now let me tell you the housekeeping rules. Please provide us with your questions in the Q&A features of the Zoom webinar. The webinar will be recorded. We will post the recording on the event webpage. This webinar will be carried out in English. IFLA Media and Information Literacy Recommendation is a short document. My presentation will stick to the recommendations today. And let me introduce the media and information literacy recommendations with several questions. The first question is, what is media and information literacy? According to IFLA's media and information literacy recommendations, it states that in order to survive and develop, make decisions, and solve problems in every facet of life, including personal, social, educational, and professional individuals, communities, and nations need information about themselves as well as their physical and their social environments. This information is available through three processes: observation and experimentation, conversations with other persons, and consultations with memory institutions. The competency to do this effectively and efficiently is called media and information literacy. So, what should be included in media and information literacy? Media and information literacies consist of the knowledge, the attitudes, and the sum of the skills needed to know when and what information is needed, where and how to obtain that information, how to evaluate critically and organize it once it is found, and how to use it in an ethical way. The concept extends beyond education and information technologies to encompass learning, critical thinking, and interpretative skills across and beyond professional and educational boundaries. Media and information literacies include all types of information resources that include oral, print, and digital. So my first question is, why media and information literacy can promote social inclusion? Media and information literacy is a new emerging field of human rights in an increasingly digital, interdependent, and global world, and promotes greater social inclusion. It can bridge the gap between the information rich and the information poor. You may want to know more about why is media and information literacy related to lifelong learning. Media and information literacy empowers and endows individuals with knowledge of the functions of the media and information systems and the conditions under which these functions are performed. Media and information literacy is closely related to lifelong learning. Lifelong learning enables individuals, communities, and nations to obtain their goals and to take advantage of emerging opportunities in the evolving global environment for the shared benefit of all individuals, not just a few. It assists them and also the institutions or organizations to meet their technological, economic, and social challenges, to redress disadvantages, and to advance every individual's well-being. Under the main drivers of information and communication technologies, there is a rapid growth of a variety of forms of information which need us to live in an information society. Under the umbrella of the developing information society at all levels, including local, regional, national, and international, IFLA urged governments and intergovernmental organizations, as well as private institutions and organizations, to pursue policies and programs that advocate for and promote media and information literacy and lifelong learning for all. In doing so, they will provide the vital foundation for fulfilling the goals of the United Nations Millennium Declarations and the World Summit on the Information Society, in addition to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4 on promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. In particular, IFLA recommends the governments and organizations to take actions on commissioned research on the state of media and information literacy and produce reports using the media and information literacy indicator as a basic so that experts, educators, and practitioners are able to decide effective initiatives, supporting professional development for education, library, information, archive, and health and human services personnel in the principles and practices of media and information literacy and lifelong learning. Embedding media and information literacy education in all lifelong learning curricula. In addition to recognizing media and information literacy and lifelong learning as key elements for the development of generic capabilities, which must be demonstrated for accreditation of all education and training programs, including media and information literacy in the core and continuing education of information professionals, educators, economic and government policymakers and administrators, as well as in the practice of advisors to the business, industry, and agriculture sectors. Implementing media and information literacy programs to increase the employability and entrepreneurial capacities of women and disadvantaged groups, including migrants, the underemployed, and the unemployed. Support thematic meetings which will facilitate the acquisition of media and information and lifelong learning strategies within the specific region, sectors, and population groups. In addition to IFLA media and information literacy recommendation, I would also like to introduce you an important media and information literacy projects from IFLA on 2020. IFLA started the media literacy project within the framework of Euro preparatory actions on the media literacy for all. The goal is to help deliver on the literacy potential to the agents of change and champions of media literacy, who continue to help build informed and engaged communities. Media and information literacy comes to be a crucial skill set in today's information dense and hyper-connected world. Concerned over misinformation and disinformation have commanded a lot of attention over the last years, showing just how important it is for people to be able to make informed decisions through the traditional and new media sources every day. Media literacy is crucial to build up informed and engaged communities. What does it mean for libraries? As information professionals, librarians have long championed information literacy. This focuses on people's competencies and information at large, whereas media and literacy emphasize the particular role of media, different media content and channels, and its broader societal impact. Libraries' experience in developing such competencies, as well as the ability to reach and offer inclusive learning opportunities to their communities, make them well positioned to help more people to develop media literacy skills. We could show our potential to improve media and information literacy in our communities and ask for the community support to libraries in doing so. In the IFLA project, IFLA is working on the European-based project curated and coordinated by the technical tech and NGO dedicated to understand and improving the way that digital technology shaped society. This project is taking a look at different important media literacy questions the public face today, such as online misinformation, digital media ownership, data privacy, tailored content and advertisement delivery, and more. To help out more about the content, or you can take a look at the project webpage with the QR code provided on the slides. And this PowerPoint slides, including Ladia's PowerPoint slide, will be uploaded to the event webpage for everyone too. So there are some other related valuable IFLA guidelines and documents which I can invite you to access online for details today. They include the IFLA's guidelines on information literacy for lifelong learning, the infographic, how to spot fake news COVID-19 version, and and also the original version of the How to Spot Fake News infographic. A traditional Chinese version, which was translated by me in 2016, was also is also available online. So this is my sharing today, and now I would like to give the floor to Laudia.
Hi. Thank
Let
you
me
so much
stop
for that.
sharing first. Yes, okay.
All right, thank you everyone. Just give me a moment while I share my screen. All right, so everyone should be able to see my screen now, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that introduction and sharing as well about media and information literacy framework and the resources provided by IFLA. And definitely that's very much aligned with the work that we're doing and some of the projects that we've embarked on at the National Library Board Singapore. So as part of the introduction earlier, Helen has also just shared that I'm Nadia, a librarian with the outreach team specifically and from the National Library Board Singapore. And I'll be sharing a bit more about the work that we do with schools and how we engage students, as well as some of our other more recent initiatives that look at media and information literacy skills for the general public as well. So this is just a quick overview of what I'll be covering today. So I will be sharing more about our information literacy program and our outreach strategy and perhaps some of the, the best practices that, arise from that, as well as perhaps some of the challenges we might have faced in running that outreach strategy, as well as our new initiative, creating an informed citizenry in Singapore through our Lab 25 plan, which is our Libraries and Archives Blueprint 2025. Okay, so just to share a bit more about our informed citizenry journey, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with SURE. That is the framework that we use at NLB for Singapore here in terms of imparting media and information literacy skills. So SURE actually was first launched in 2013 to help Singaporeans to be discerning consumers of information. And it's really through this very simple and easy to remember acronym SURE that we help to sort of inculcate that sense of critical thinking whenever they come across any media or information in their daily life. So SURE stands for source, understand, research, and evaluate. And I think with the acronym, it is also quite simple to remember. And it also is something that it's very easy to talk, in colloquially when they're asking or they come across a piece of information, be it like a news post that they see or an image or, now with generative AI, plenty of image out there that we can always ask ourselves, are you sure that this is, is this from a reliable source? Are you sure that this is accurate? Are you sure that this is something that is real, for instance, right? Or is it part of fake news? So that acronym is just a very simple, handy step, but obviously with our courseware and content, we definitely, delve deeper into these aspects of information literacy. So that was 2013 where we started off with really targeting the general public. And then in 2018, what we have was SURE 2.0. I mean, unofficially, it's called SURE 2.0. But what we did was that we started then to focus our outreach strategy, catering to different needs and segments of the population. So we had SURE for School, where we created content and our outreach was really meeting the needs of students across different age groups, so school-going children from primary school, secondary, and pre-university students as well. And then we also focus on SURE for Work. So this is where we try to look at how we can impart media and information literacy skills for the working adults. Right? So be it for part of their lifelong learning for work purposes or even in the instance of their everyday life. And lastly, one of the target audience that we focus on where we sort of broad spectrum of SURE for Life. And that was really focused on not just the general public, but also looking at seniors and how they could, how they tackle digital literacy and information literacy in today's age. And what we've now embarked on, I guess, in in our journey today, is that we are looking at the Informed Citizenry Initiative, part of National Library Board's Lab 25, which is the Libraries and Archives Blueprint. And that initiative is focused really on nurturing thoughtful citizens. So it's not just about how they acquire information, but on the information that they, come across. How do they reflect on the information that they access every day? So my sharing today really is looking at the National Library Board's Information Literacy Initiative that targets schools as well as general public. So there are three strands to our strategy here. Firstly is to look at creating content as well as curating resources for both schools and the public. So when I'm looking at creating content, our team of librarians, we work together to create either infographics, creating content in terms of frameworks that can be shared, lesson plans, videos as well that can be used for the public as well for schools. So looking at, we share this with schools in terms of librarians or for teachers to use within their classroom as well. We also curate content. So there's rich information that, other countries, other institutions have created various frameworks. So we do curate them so that, it's an easy one-stop portal for people to pick up, what are some of the best practices that we see outside as well. Okay. Aside from content, we also look at engagement. And one of the ways that we build engagement here is to create learning journeys, talks, and workshops. And you can see here one of my colleagues, I think, when COVID hit, definitely all of us were working from home and we couldn't head out. So that was when there was also a shift to really conducting a lot more of our engagement through online, like Zoom, like today. Right. So that is one of the ways that we've conducted workshops and talks, and really trying to figure out how to keep that interactivity that you get in person with online. And that was something that we worked on in terms of using different tools, technological tools, such as like Kahoot games. Sorry about that. As well as, having sort of video content to break up that monotony of a 1 hour workshop that's online. And lastly, one of the, I think, really important part of our REACH strategy is leveraging on partnerships. So we do work with different government agencies, and one of the important thing, or one of the benefits from working with partners, is really about reaching out to an audience that we may not necessarily always have access to, right? So the idea here is also reaching out to people who may not necessarily be library users and therefore not as perhaps not aware or of media and information literacy skills that is required in their everyday life. So I'll start first a bit more about the content and resources. I think Helen did share also briefly about, the world of information that we live in today. Misinformation and technology trends are constantly shifting. And what we also are very much aware as a team and the National Library Board is how this content needs to match our audience's learning needs, right? To ultimately equip them with some sort of awareness and skills to address these challenges. So I've just pulled out some of these recent articles that are both local in Singapore and specific to Singapore, as well as what we've viewed, in the world today, right? So within Singapore, I think one of the concerns is that, from a recent surveys that 3 in 10 Singapore parents in Singapore, they don't feel that their children are well informed on online safety, and related to online safety as well is really about how information literacy skills can help to combat that. So not just looking at misinformation, but looking at issues such as, online safety with regard to, behavior, looking in terms of content that might be not so desirable. And that's definitely something that the work that we do for SURE is what we are hoping to address. And I think this is, without saying, I think all of us have seen the boom of generative AI and how that has really gone mainstream. So the technology itself might not be new, but the fact that there's just, tons of people who are now really able to use various generative AI, be it in terms of chatbots like ChatGPT or image generators like DALL-E or Midjourney to create these images. And I think we're all aware as information professionals as well that while there are a lot of benefits to learning using generative AI, there's also the pitfalls of such technologies being available, right? So looking at how misinformation has definitely, been a lot easier to generate misinformation, to spread misinformation, making it a lot more difficult as well to discern what is real and what is not in terms of like images that are created or content that is created. So how do we at the National Library Board keep ourselves up to date? I think, as mentioned here, with the context of generative AI, we have already started incorporating part of our workshops to schools or our outreach sessions to schools to include some of the things that the students, for instance, need to be aware of when they're using a chatbot such as, ChatGPT, right? Looking at how that can impact their research, how that can impact the way that they access information, and also how they can use that information in a more ethical manner as well, right? I'm not sure if how many of you have already started playing around with ChatGPT. I know there's like ChatGPT 4 as well, but the free sort of version. One of the things that we always tell and share with students is that it is a great tool that could start generating information and learning about a particular topic. But one of the things that they definitely need to work on is to be sure about the information that is generated from there. So always needing to research, to cross-reference what is found in that that's been generated for them, and the idea of figuring out where the references, that's very important, that we try to always put across, where's that source of information from that is generated there. The other thing that the National Library Board is also working on is to create and release a set of pre-bunking videos to inoculate the public against online falsehoods. So in this instance, I think one of the things that we all consume information in different ways, and one of the heavy consuming of information is really through videos. So one of the things that we are definitely working on is to create this set of videos that will be shared and to be used on social media. Right, so we'll be working on that as part of a social media campaign, and this is reaching out to the general public as well. And then looking at, instead of just looking at creating awareness and imparting the skills, we also found that there were people who were interested to go deeper, and that's where we sort of also address the psychological reasons of why people might fall prey to fake news. One of the things that that the participants of our workshops who look at the psychological reasons, they're very interested, and the idea here is to go another level deeper, to be self-aware of some of the reasons why we might fall into it, how then we can get out of these echo chambers, for instance, when we come across information on social media. And lastly, with our sure steps, we definitely do equip users with fact-checking skills, especially when we come across more, like I mentioned, with generative AI. It's a lot harder to discern, for instance, an original image. So we do definitely update our set of, fact-checking skills beyond just, reverse image search is one definite way, but definitely looking at, sources, seeing if also there's been studies, and we try to filter down the studies of, how can I spot a particular image that might be generated. So, things like looking at little splotches, or certain things like, fingers, or little anatomy of the image might not be as accurate or smooth. That's definitely one of the things that we also do highlight and keep updating ourselves as a team, as well as so that we can then share these other skills with the general public or with students. So this is something that might be, I guess, of use for most of you today, really looking at our SURE courseware or curriculum for schools. So this is something that we have just refreshed. And so the first phase of the content has already been rolled out on our website. It's free to use, so feel free to have a look at it as well. I'll share the link in the chat as well as at the end of my slides. So one of the things that we did with this curriculum is, as I mentioned, there's a lot of good work that's being done elsewhere with other institutions. And what we've done is to take reference from some of the learning outcomes from, for instance, the Unified Framework for Digital Literacy in Singapore, as well as the EU's Commission for the Digital Competency Framework. And we took reference for that to also see what are some of the key learning objectives and outcomes we wanted for our own SURE curriculum for schools. So the coverage that we have will be looking at 20 topics over 3 broad areas. So we've just completed our information literacy phase, and then we are then in progress to cover topics of digital safety and digital wellness, because all that is part of the information world and information scape that we live in today. And we found it very important that we need to tackle this head on. And the other thing also is that while we do have these topics, 20 topics that are already in set that we want to explore, one of the things that we are definitely very aware of is to keep the information up to date. So ensuring that the examples that we use, for instance, are relevant or keeping up to what is key and trend on people's mind. So we are also looking at incorporating generative AI, for instance. With regard to the courseware, I think one of the things that we looked at for students is really trying to differentiate that, so to different age groups as well. So we do sort of tie our tiers of content and courseware to the school-going age for Singapore. So when we start with the basic tier of 7 to 12, that's for the primary school students, then we move on to the intermediate, which is the 13 to 16 at the secondary school level, as well as then to the pre-university level, so looking at junior colleges and polytechnics in Singapore for the advanced tier of 17 to 18-year-olds. So I have some screenshots here. I'm sorry they're a bit small, but one of the things that we've incorporated in the courseware is to look at slides for self-directed learning. So we understand that sometimes it is very difficult to run a dedicated lesson in classroom, for teachers to run that dedicated lesson in the classroom on cyber wellness or looking at media and information literacy. So what we do is have a deck of slides that can be easily adapted to, a shorter part of a lesson for teachers. The other thing also is that the slides are easy for students themselves to take part for self-directed learning. One of the things with the self-directed learning slides is that it can be used easily during home-based learning sessions that the schools have. We also have infographics as well as videos, very short, easy explanation videos, just to share with them, for different types of learners, so that they have a range of types of resources where they can acquire that information. And what you see here below on your below right of your screen are some of the screenshots that are from the school's student learning spaces. So these are some of the screenshots of lesson plans where teachers have also incorporated our SURE courseware and curriculum to create their own lesson plans, and they also share that with other teachers. And they're really quite creative. So one of the things that we kept quite open with our framework and our content is that it is easily adaptable to use in the classroom. So if you see on the bottom right, for instance, there is one of the teachers had actually created a whole module for students on how to become an online detective in unpacking information that they encounter. And that was really very interesting for that. Then there are also other teachers who have incorporated just aspects of the content that we have created. So just looking at videos, for instance, and they also do use it in the classroom as part of other subjects or other disciplines. It may not necessarily be a dedicated lesson on media and information literacy. It will be incorporated, it can be incorporated to different subjects, disciplines, so such as the humanities, where the research element and how to be sure of the sources of information that they come across is very useful for us. There's a project in primary school and secondary school where they look at history. So looking at historical sources as well as project work, which is something at the advanced tier 17 and 18-year-olds do. So the project work is a bit more, it's a bit wider. It looks at any sort of issues, can be current issues, can be past issues. And that's where the SURE framework comes in very handy for them to embark on their projects. Moving on from content is engagement. So we do engage a diverse set of audience. So beyond just students in schools, we also look to reaching out to children and parents. So one of the things that we also realize is the importance of complementing what we do in schools and the outreach and the work that we do in schools, where parents and families also play a part to support that their child's learning with regard to when they're engaging online information. Then the other groups that we also do is to look at teenagers. Specifically here, I just wanted to share a bit more. I'll delve into this a bit more in my later slides, but also collaborating with different schools where there are student leaders who want to be ambassadors and advocates for MIL, for Media and Information Literacy. And that's how we work with that group as well too. In some ways, it's very similar to your train the trainer model, but here what we're doing is really reaching out to students as advocates and ambassadors within their communities as well. The other sort of diverse audience, as I mentioned earlier, looking at adults beyond our usual audience that are in the libraries, for instance. So we do work with different agencies. So here is a screenshot of a seminar where we're invited to look at misinformation within the context of counterterrorism for religious organizations. So that particular seminar looking at how misinformation and disinformation could, impact society, and, understanding that information literacy skills is not just about, looking at, fake news, and I'll sort of delete or report the particular news that I see, but also how that could have, impact really on the political, social fabric in any sort of country. And we also reach out to seniors. So with seniors, we are also looking at them as not just for information literacy, but in tandem with digital literacy. So as they encounter using technologies, then what needs to accompany that learning of technology is also then what are some of the issues and possible challenges with regard to using that technology, right? So for instance, with regard to in Singapore, one of the key issues is also looking at scams and how that could, how the SURE steps could then counter these challenges and problems when you are connected online. So that is something that we also do when we are working with seniors with regard to information literacy. Then the last thing that I wanted to share also with regard to engagement is looking at the different formats that we do. So we do workshops for teachers as well. So one of the things that we found really impactful is really looking at how not just us going out to teach the students, but also getting the buy-in, getting the teachers themselves to be part of that community, to reach out, to educate the students on the importance of information literacy. So the train the trainer model is not just specific to training the teacher librarians, but also looking at teachers who are of different subject disciplines. So the idea here is that media and information literacy skills aren't just tied to a specific subject. They can't just be in silo, but also the idea that it is applicable to different aspects of school subjects, right? So be it for history, be it for science, that is, if they can see that this skill is interconnected, can be used across these disciplines, is one way that we can get students for it to be more aware and almost second nature, to be sure, whenever they encounter any information across the course of their school life. And then moving on, we also do carry out academic research workshops. So, from 2015 to 2022, our team has reached out to over 35,000 individuals, ranging from students as well as teacher trainees. So, teacher trainees here refer to teachers who are part of the National Institute of Education. So before they step out to become teachers, one of the things is that we reach out to them and go like, this is something that your students will be very useful, and to get their buy-in already before they go out into the classroom, to the schools to do their work, is that, having this set of framework or principles that can be applied in their lessons as well. Moving on, we also have a news gallery at the National Library of Singapore. And the news gallery here, we do conduct tours for schools as well as for the public, the general public. And one of the things of the news gallery is that while it touches on the history of newspapers, for instance, in Singapore, we have also updated the news gallery and refreshed it to look at photojournalism and misinformation as well. And one of the things that people usually enjoy is really looking at the trajectory of how news has been reported and how some things don't change. So things like editorial bias is something that they have seen throughout the history as well as today. So they make that connection as well. And it's a great space for us to inculcate and to impart news literacy skills as well. For them to see upfront, some of the newspapers and some of the, images that have been created and how that tells a story as well. So lastly, I'll talk about the engagement part. And I mentioned earlier that, one of the things that is really key to the success of an information literacy program or a strategy is really working with partners. So we have been very lucky to have worked very closely with the Ministry of Education in Singapore, and specifically for two of these school contests that I'll just share here. So the school contest here touches on information literacy skills, and one of the important things of having a partner on board like the Ministry of Education is to, again, getting buy-in and support, so that can be also be shared with the rest of the school communities for the different schools, the teachers, the head of department, the principals, and that's one of the things that helps to really show the importance of information literacy and the work that we do in the libraries for the students here. So just to share a bit more about the school contests, we have two different school contests. One is Prove It contest, where students are tested on their information literacy skills, and we've also updated the format. So in line with keeping up with what students learn or are interested in as well. So for instance, our 2021 edition of the Prove It contest included students creating videos as well, and how that videos can be used as to advocate information literacy within their school communities as well. And we had really interesting, very creative videos. They're also on our show website. Feel free to browse there. And they were really very interested in that creative element, and at the same time also learning about information literacy skills as well. The next contest that we've had is the Historical Scene Investigation Challenge. So while this is more related to history, one of the core things is to look at research skills and using library resources and how to understand and to do research across different types of resources that are available to them. And also we did also incorporate a video element as well in the 2022 edition. And one of the things that they also had to supplement, so it wasn't just a sort of video that they just create. So they actually had to supplement the research and to show that research to us of the steps they've taken to come up with that product as well. So it ensures that the students who come through the contest, it's not just focused on the end product, but also the process that has IL very embedded closely in that process that needs to be shown in the contest. And one of the other things I briefly mentioned earlier is also looking at collaboration for student-led outreach. So one of the things that, one of the projects that we've embarked on last year is to work with the Institute of Technical Education in Singapore. So they have a few campuses. We worked with one of the campus last year, and the student leaders were interested in creating a sort of roadshow in the school campus, right, about information literacy. So one of the things that our trainers did was to firstly, not just to share with them what are the steps of that, but also to share our experience with running campaigns, running roadshows, and how to engage and interact, and to then educate their peers as well about information literacy. So that was a really interesting and successful sort of project here, because they stepped out of their comfort zone of really reaching out to their peers on this topic. And also with the Institute of Technical Education, the same group of ambassadors also looked at a sharing session with seniors. So one of the learning experience of this collaboration also was for the student leaders and advocates to be in tune with how they would address their outreach to their peers versus the seniors as well. And that was a great learning experience for the group of students. So moving on, I'm mindful of the time, so it's my last few slides. I'm looking at, I'll share a bit more about the Informed Citizenry Initiative as part of the Lab 25 that we have here at the National Library Board. So one of our key initiatives is Read to Be Sure, or RTBS for short. So RTBS aims to educate the public on trending topics through a combination of curated content and accompanying programs as well. So you can see some of the topics that we've covered, like fast fashion, cryptocurrency. We even covered the World Cup last year. And one of the things that we wanted to impart really to our readers, to impart to our users, is the importance of, exploring multiple perspectives on these topics that are trending, right? And the idea of having to look at something from all angles, so that they come away and walk away with a balanced and credible knowledge base as well. So I'll just share a bit more about the what we've done with Read to Be Sure. So we do have videos as well with guests from diverse backgrounds, sharing their perspective and insights. So if we come back to the Sure framework, right, we are doing part of the research in terms of cross-referencing, looking at different angles, and then what we had was we invited speakers who are from different backgrounds. So for instance, you see the screenshot here looking at the metaverse, which was a hot topic last year and to the start of this year as well. Looking at how the metaverse and its possible impact as a social equalizer. So we had an advocate who was part of an organization that looks at women and children's safety within digital spaces. We also had speakers who came from a tech background. So these experts provided different perspectives, and that conversation and debate almost really provides a snapshot of what are the things that people might need to know on these topics, and then also providing resources after that, so that they can explore further on different aspects to that topic. One of the other things that we also did with partnership is to work with different content partners. So you can see here a screenshot of a comic artist in Singapore. And one of the things that we've worked with her is to broaden that reach of our users here to beyond existing audiences or library users as well. So working with partners such as that is a very important skill to impact our InfoLit and our Sure skills and framework to beyond our existing users. In addition to that, what you see here on the right side is one of our notes. So this is the notes at the part where I'll read to be sure. You see this installation, and we had questions and write-ups and quizzes for people to understand. This was, I believe, on sustainability. So looking at how the importance of looking at different perspectives of sustainability initiatives, for instance. And this note was, I believe, at Gardens by the Bay, and that was reaching out to different audiences who may not necessarily be library users or may not even be local. Yeah. One of the things that we also were very aware of was to look at public engagement via social media, and how it with the collaboration with the content partners, we really saw rich conversations in the comments. Some of them were really sharing the different perspectives, and that was what we really wanted with Read to Be Sure, was to engage people into the topic, to invite them to participate, to share different perspectives, because that's the whole point of Read to Be Sure, was to also understand that there are different perspectives before coming away with their own sort of conclusion or sort of opinion on the matter. And lastly, one of the things that we also did are pop-ups at libraries for Read to Be Sure, as well as debate programs to reach out in a very physical space, not just the online space. One of the things that we also found, some of the feedback that we got for the debate programs, so the structure of the debate made it very clear for participants to see the pros and cons to a particular topic, and they appreciated that that was summarized and whittled down for them and to consume during that particular program. And it was really interesting to see the visitors and the participants after the program to then go up to talk to our experts and to then share and to inquire more about the topic that was on the metaverse for that particular debate. We also do debates in schools, so we work closely with schools to run exhibition debates. So you see here on the right-hand corner, we worked with a junior college, and the students were then there to debate to their peers as well about a particular topic. And one of the things that they also referenced or had to reference was the Read to Be Sure resource package, as well as to share the insights of how they sort of arise at their opinion, their stand as well. Yeah. All right. So that is what I've shared for Read to Be Sure. And in fact, I think I am now at the end of my presentation. So some of the resources that I've highlighted earlier can be found on our website. So you can head over to sure.nlb.gov.sg. In fact, I think I can cut and paste this in our chat. So I'll just do it in just a moment. And you can see the courseware that we've just rolled out. The subsequent topics will be rolled out as well in phases over the coming year. And these resources are free that you're able to use for the different age groups that you are also attending to or interested in to reach out to. All right. So thank you very much, everyone. That's the end of my sharing. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to use the Q&A button to key in your questions. All right.
Okay, let's go back to the scene right now. To turn on my video before we start the Q&A session. So thank you so much for the thought-provoking sharing, really inspiring sharing from Claudia. And especially it's really excited to know the development of Zoom in Singapore, also including Read to Be Zoo right now and the Lab 25. It's really like a exciting project, I think, in Singapore. And thank you so much for giving us the strategies of facing the generative AI issues that we face, I think, all over the world. There's lots of ideas. I think we can, initiate after, pick up the ideas from your sharing. Now, I have some questions for you. And can you share any specific examples or success stories from the school outreach initiatives?
So I think one of the things that I wanted to share was the school competition format was a really successful one in terms of year on year. We do see growing student participations and working with different departments in the Ministry of Education to support us with that competition. And I mean, the growing numbers of students and groups who are coming, student groups who are participating. I do think that format made it a lot more fun beyond just the classroom to learn information literacy or media information literacy. So we found that to be one of a successful case study, I guess, for students to look at. And the other thing also, while the initiative just started last year, and that was the work with the Institute of Technical Education, was really working closely with student ambassadors, being advocates within their communities for media and information literacy. So I think in terms of working with schools, these new formats that we have used for a while with the school competition, as well as working directly with student leaders who are then, ambassadors for information literacy, was it's an interesting and a fairly new way that we are exploring of reaching out.
Yeah, right. Wonderful. So it is, I always believe that learning beyond the wall of the classrooms, one of the effective ways to carry out, different open learning projects. So, and also the ambassador, the student ambassador, and you emphasize about the collaboration with different sectors in the society. I think you got the synergies of the society to support the work in and so wonderful. And that is another question I want to ask you. So can you elaborate on the importance of collaboration with the government agency like the MOE and the schools to enhance the media and information literacy efforts for students? What have you found to be most effective in fostering these collaborations?
Okay. So I think maybe I'll just share very briefly with regard to digital literacy skills. The Ministry of Education has their own framework and curriculum as well. So they do have a curriculum specifically under I believe it's called Character and Citizen Education, where they do incorporate things like cyber wellness, which entails media and information literacy. So they do have that curriculum that's set up. So what we've done with the content that we've created, as well as the programs, it's always to complement what is already being used in schools. So that is the way that we've approached it. So instead of duplicating and repeating the same thing, one of the things is to ensure that the content complements that. So we work closely to see where are possible gaps that could be done, and that's where our SURE framework, as well as the new the refreshed curriculum that we are using, will be there to support that. And then the other thing also with regard to the importance of getting buy-in, I would say buy-in from that level, is that it's one of those things where you do need that support from above to then ensure that on the ground level it's something that can be picked up and can be used as well, with regard to working at sort of a ministry level. But at the same time, one of the things that we also do is to then reach out to our existing networks and partners as well. So one of the things that the team does is to reach out to different schools, which can be also quite a big task, because there are so many. There are like over 100 secondary schools and over how many primary schools, right? So on one level, having one main partner, which is at the ministry level, is important. But on the other hand, we also do continue with working with individual schools and partners to reach out to ensure that our resources are used, to ensure that the framework is understood and being able to be shared at different levels as well. So it's the collaboration here. It's definitely very important, but it goes twofold. We're looking at the top level as well as us really actively on the ground reaching out to schools. Yeah.
Wow. So how many staff you have in the team supported the schools?
Our team is very small, so it's a team that's no bigger than there's 5 of us on the team. Wow. So we do which is why with a very lean team, one of the things that we really needed to work on was partnerships. And that's how we can help to reach out to that group that we have. And then we also do the sort of on the ground level as well between all of us. So I don't know if this is the same situation that some of you have with a very lean team. So sometimes it's really actively reaching out to different partners that might be at an agency level or a ministry level that can help you with disseminating to a larger audience.
Right. Yeah, so I'm sure you are all talent. And another thing I pick up from the answer from the second question is big terms now, be sure.
Yes.
So always be sure before you disseminate any information. Yeah, that is great. That is wonderful. And now I have the last question to you. How do you ensure that your media and information literacy efforts for students or the general public remain up to date or relevant in addressing the ever-changing landscape of media?
Yeah, so I briefly touched on this at the start. I think one of the key things that everyone's talking about now is generative AI. I think all of us are concerned, a lot of information professionals are concerned about this as well. I think one of the things is really the team itself is really keeping up to date with what's happening within Singapore's context as well as overseas. And one of the things that we are working on, so something that I had not managed to share is in depth, because it's still a work in progress, is that we are complementing our courseware, our Sure courseware that I shared earlier, with specifically on generative AI. So that will be rolling out sometime this year as well. So what we are doing is we are going to touch on the different the main formats of generative AI that people encounter, and we are going to create content workshops and sort of a lesson plan, if you will, of understanding and using generative AI and the concerns and issues that also arise with that. So that's one. And I think it's the adaptability of the team to react to that. The other thing also we realize is, the content, the kind of content that we create. So people aren't looking at, very long resource lists. I think that's not something that most people will really be maybe in tune to. So one of the things that we always are looking at is to create bite-sized content and also in different formats. So I think, for instance, you shared also at the start, things like infographics. We might do a shorter infographic. We might do a very simple one that can be easily shared, on, if it's a smaller, simple infographic, not too wordy, you can just share on WhatsApp very easily to your friends as well, right? So that's one of the things that we're doing as a team. So keeping up with what's trending, but also understanding that these trends, at the core of it, your MIL skills are always relevant to whatever that comes your way. So it's just about packaging that information. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm looking forward to the update about, especially any information about generated AI. Yeah, from the MLB. Now, let me see from the Q&A features of our webinar, there seems like they're very satisfied and there is no question. So we come to the end of today's webinar. On behalf of the Division F, I would like to thank Claudia again for her time and efforts on preparing this wonderful, excellent sharing today. And also thank you for all of you for your participation of the webinar today. You are also invited to join the IFLA Division F coming webinar on libraries of the future. This webinar is especially for those who are interested in the work of the professional units under the Division F, which include the acquisition and collection development session, art library sessions, document delivery and resource sharing session, preservation and conservation session, rare books and special collection session, and also the LGBT plus user special interest group, as well as the religious libraries and the dialogue special interest group. So representatives from each of the professional units I just mentioned, we deliver short presentations about the future of libraries. They look like in their areas. So you can find the event webpage on the Zoom chat. Maybe let me see whether I can have the page provided for you right now. Okay, so I will send this in to the Zoom chat for everyone. Yes, okay. Once again, thank you for your participation today. I look forward to welcoming you all on June 10 again. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.